In this video, I will try to explain to you how reviews works in the policy module. When you look at the policy module, you have two tabs, the policies and the reviews. So on the policy tab is where you have all your policies. You can see them here, got 27 of them. And in the review tab, you have your reviews. Now I just clicked on the review tab, so you see I have 80 reviews. That makes sense because every policy will have one or more reviews. So think about it like a spreadsheet with your tabs in your spreadsheets, right? So it's a way to structure data. Now let's look what review columns look like. A review will always have a planned date, and that's the date where you said that you want to do the review. It will have an actual date, which is the day when you actually completed the review. It will have a reviewer, which will be one or more users or groups, and it will have a description, something you write about what happened with the review. And you will always need to have a review in the future. So there will always be a next review date. The review of a policy will include as well the version of the document, the new version of the document content type, so what you want that to be, content, URL, attachments, the content URL in my case, and attachments if you have. Now, when you're creating policy reviews, what you're doing is you are creating new versions of the document. So if I have a document, for example, this one here, and I try to edit it because I want to change, for example, the version, I can't. You see it's grayed out, the content type. So now I'm using the editor, but let's say I want to use the URL. Well, you see, I can't do any of that. The reason for that is that when you're using the policy module, you need to use reviews to change or update any of these things in here. So what you do is you just create a new review and you define your new version, whatever content you want to use, and adjust the content itself. What I just did is I created a dummy policy. Now, when you create a policy, you have two roles, the owner and the reviewer. You can rename them to whatever you want. Typically, the owner will be someone who has an interest on the policy to be reviewed at all times, not the case here. And the reviewer will actually be the person that is actually creating the content. Now, the reviewer will typically be somewhere around your company, not necessarily the same person as here, but it might be that way. When you create a policy and the two reviews are automatically created for you, the reviewer, so whoever you put in here, will be assigned to the review, to the initial reviews. So look, I'm gonna click here on two, gonna open that in a new tab. Okay, so we have the reviewer is the dummy user and the owner is the CISO. So when I look at the two reviews for this policy, we have the two initial reviews. Remember, when we create a policy, automatically two reviews will be there for you. The first one will have the plan and the actual, all the fields will be completed based on what you had on the policy. The plan date and the actual date will be the date when the policy was created. The reviewer role, so you see the reviews have a role as well called reviewer, and initially is inherited from the policy. So when we created the policy, we said the reviewer will be the dummy guy, the dummy user, so here it is. There will be an automatic description saying basically this is the starting point. There will be the version you said and the content of the document you defined. Eramba will also create a second review by default, and that review will have a planned date which is based on the date you said you wanted to do the next review. The actual date will be empty because this will be completed only when the review is completed. The review will again be the dummy user because it comes from the parent policy, no description, and nothing in here as well, version or content, because again that will be updated when you update this review. So now let's talk about how we deal with reviews, okay? And what I will do is I will explain the two typical scenarios. Now, before I do that, what you need to understand is that for every policy, as we said 50 times already, you have reviews. When I look at these two reviews, you need to think of a review as a row. So every row will basically be a review, right? And think a little bit like a spreadsheet if you want. A row can be edited, so I can complete my review. I can even delete my review if I want. There will be no reviews in the future. The policy will never be expired. And if I want to add rows or I want to add reviews, so non-planned reviews, I just go here and I add a row in here. So if I want to complete now, let me use another one. Let's say that I have my information security policy, which has 4 reviews. Let's say that I want to create a new review of this document. So if I go to show, I see all my reviews. I'm gonna sort them by plan date. So I have reviews on the 30, on the 30, on the 30 of October. So they did 3 reviews in a row. So that day they were, updating things, you see. And the version was updating up. And my next review is planned for next year. So there should be anything for me to do until next year. But let's say that you have to update this document once again because, I don't know, something changed. So what you want to do is you want to create version 1.3 of this document. Well, you need to add a row. And to do that, you go to Actions, you go to Add, you select the policy, so in this case is Information Security Policy. I go to Current Review. So I'm creating a review from 0. So the review, the planned date, I will say that is today. The actual date, I will say is today as well. I will keep all the reviewers. Now these reviewers will come from the previous review, not from the parent review, okay? We decided to make some changes. I'll just write here. I'm gonna set this as completed, very, very important. Now, eramba is telling me the last version is 1.2, so this one will be 1.3. And here is the content of my policy. Now, I could change if I want, because let's say I don't want to use content anymore. I want to use URLs. I could do that, the change now if I want. I'm gonna just stay everything as it is. Now, when I go to next review, you see the eramba, I said always needs a review in the future. But this document, as we said, has a review in the future planned for next year. So eramba basically saying, do you really need another review in the future? Because you already have one, the one for 2023. So what I will do is I'll say, no, I just don't need it because I have one enough. And now I'm gonna save. So what happens here? We created another row, which is this one here. You see, the planned date is actually today. Today is 17th of November. I have my description, my new version is a content policy, and eramba is tagging this as a current. So I haven't touched my future review because I don't have a need, it's in the future. So this is the first scenario on how you add rows into eramba. Now, what I will teach you is how you edit a policy which has a review, which is, I don't know, is coming very, very soon, or it is in the past already. And here I have an example, for example. So this guy here, I know it has a review expired because I see the status here. So what we will do is I'm gonna click on here and show, and you see I have here a expired review. So what I will say is, well, we haven't really changed anything. We have the IT group in here that is supposed to review this document. I'm gonna click on the review, click edit. I'm gonna say, well, today was a review. No changes so far. Yes, I'm gonna set this as completed. I'm gonna put the version to 1.1. I'm gonna set the content, and I'm gonna leave this as it is. Now, when I go to next review, I don't have a review in the future, right? I have only 2 reviews, and this is the one I'm completing. So I need to tell them about when will be my next review. And I will say that my next review will be somewhere next year, I'm gonna say somewhere mid-February, and I'm gonna keep as a reviewer for the next, I'm gonna keep the same people. So I'm gonna keep the IT group, okay? And now I'm just gonna go and save. And that's it. So what I just did is, again, I completed the review which was expired, is no longer expired, now it's a current review. You see the planned date stayed the same as it was originally. I have my actual date, you see the gap in between these 2 dates. This is a very interesting number to analyze. At the end of the year, I typically export all my reviews as a CSV, and I look at how big this gap is. That indicates how behind I am with my reviews. My description and my new version, okay? So this is the way in which we complete a review itself. In any review, you should always write here comments and attachments. For example, you could add an export of the policy, yes, or you can add attachments, or you can write approve or disapprove, or whatever interaction was in here as part of this review should be here, so your auditors can say, well, this person is not doing things on their own. Now, as I explained, you can add a review, you can complete reviews, and also you can delete reviews. It's not really normal to delete a review, but you might need to do it. For example, if you don't want to do reviews in eramba, for whatever the reason is, you need to get rid of this review in here, because what happens is that one day after this date, this thing will get yellow. So if you don't want to do reviews in eramba, you just go here, you delete the review, and this will not be anywhere in the system. So you will never have an expired review in the future. Again, not ideal, but if you want to do it, it's an option.